A man walks into a shelter after 6 years overseas, 6 years of deployments, time zones, silence. His old dog is blind now, gray around the muzzle, barely able to stand on her own without her legs trembling. The staff warn him gently before he goes back. She hasn't reacted to anyone in months, they say. Not to new volunteers, not to the sound of the front gate, not even to food some days. He walks up anyway, and he says one word. Her tail starts moving before her eyes even find him. Not a slow wag, not confusion. Her whole body remembers something her eyes can no longer confirm. 6 years. No contact, no calendar counting down the days, no photograph on a wall to remind her, and yet something inside that failing, aging body held on the entire time, waiting. How is that possible? Here's the question that has quietly puzzled scientists for decades. What is actually happening inside a dog's brain when it remembers a person? We know dogs don't think in language. There's no internal voice narrating, "This is my owner, he left in 2020, he's back now." They don't replay memories like a film reel, scene by scene, the way we imagine our own memories work. So how do they hold on to a specific human being for years, sometimes for an entire lifetime, without ever once saying a name, reading a letter, or looking at a photograph? And here's what makes it even stranger, almost backwards from what we'd expect. Human memory is famously unreliable. We forget the sound of a grandparent's voice a decade after they're gone. We forget the faces of childhood friends. We forget entire years of our own lives, only holding on to fragments. Memory researchers have shown for decades that human recall degrades steadily over time unless it's actively reinforced. But dogs, an animal with a brain that weighs a fraction of ours with a fraction of the neurons, somehow do something we struggle to do. They hold on tighter and longer to the people they've loved. So, what's different about a dog's brain? What is it built to do that ours isn't? To answer that, we have to go back much further than any individual dog's lifetime. We have to go back to the very reason dogs exist at all. Roughly 20,000 to 40,000 years ago, somewhere across the Ice Age landscapes of Eurasia, wild wolves began drifting closer to human settlements. Not out of trust, out of hunger. Human camps meant fire, meant leftover bones, meant scraps too small for a wolf pack to bother hunting for. Most wolves kept their distance, wary of the strange upright creatures around the fire. But a small number didn't. A handful were just calm enough, just curious enough to stay close. And those were the ones who ate. Generation after generation, that single trait, comfort around humans, kept getting passed down. The nervous wolves stayed in the wild, hunting on their own terms. The calm ones stayed near people and thrived. Over thousands of years, without anyone designing it on purpose, humanity ran one of the longest, most patient breeding experiments in history. And here's the part that matters most for our mystery. What that experiment selected for wasn't intelligence. It wasn't speed. It wasn't obedience. Not at first. It was attachment. The wolves that survived and reproduced near humans were the ones whose brains were wired to bond, to seek out human company, to feel calm rather than threatened around us. Every dog alive today, from a chihuahua asleep on a couch to a working shepherd on a farm, carries the end result of that selection. Their brains aren't just tolerant of humans, they're built, at a biological level, to form deep attachment to us. And that difference, attachment as a core survival trait rather than an afterthought, changes everything about how their memory works. It starts with the nose. A dog's sense of smell isn't just stronger than ours. It works on an entirely different scale, almost a different sense altogether. Humans have roughly 5 million scent receptors lining our nasal passages. Dogs have up to 300 million. And the part of a dog's brain devoted to processing smell is, proportionally, about 40 times larger than the equivalent region in the human brain. Try to picture that difference. If human smell is like reading a headline, dog smell is like reading the entire newspaper, then the archives behind it, then the ink chemistry used to print it. So when a dog meets you for the first time, it isn't just seeing your face the way we do, it's building something closer to a chemical fingerprint. Traces from your skin, compounds in your sweat, subtle chemical signals shaped by your diet, your environment, even your mood. All of it gets absorbed and stored, the way we might store a name or a face. But a scent profile alone doesn't explain love. It doesn't explain devotion or grief or a tail wagging after 6 years of silence. So researchers went looking for what does. In 2015, a team at Emory University led by neuroscientist Gregory Burns did something that had never been done before at that scale. They spent months training dogs to walk into an MRI machine completely on their own and lie perfectly still, fully awake, with no sedation, so scientists could finally watch a living dog's brain activity in real time, responding to real stimuli. When those dogs caught the scent of their own owner, one particular brain region consistently lit up: the caudate nucleus. This is a region tied to reward and anticipation, the same region that activates in the human brain when we're expecting something good: a paycheck, a favorite meal, a person we've been looking forward to seeing. Crucially, it didn't light up the same way for the scent of a stranger. It didn't even light up the same way for the scent of another dog the animal knew well. It responded specifically and most strongly to the one person the dog was bonded to. That was the first hard, measurable evidence. A dog's brain doesn't just recognize its owner the way it might recognize a familiar tree or a familiar route on a walk. It anticipates them. It lights up in expectation, the exact same way your own brain lights up when you think about someone you love, but that's only part of the story. Because scent and reward explain recognition. They explain why a dog gets excited at a familiar smell. They don't fully explain why a dog can go years, sometimes most of its life, without contact, and still respond instantly and completely as if no time had passed at all. For that, scientists had to look at a completely different chemical system entirely. In 2015, a landmark study published in the journal Science, led by researcher Miho Nagasawa in Japan, examined something deceptively simple: what happens biologically when a dog and its owner simply look into each other's eyes. The results were striking. Both species released oxytocin, the hormone most closely tied to bonding, trust, and social connection. This is the exact same hormone that spikes between a mother and her newborn child during those first fragile hours of bonding. And the exchange went both directions. The owner's oxytocin levels rose during eye contact. The dog's oxytocin levels rose even higher. Researchers described it as the first documented case of a genuine cross-species oxytocin bonding loop, something previously only observed within a single species, like between a parent and child. That single discovery reshaped how scientists understood the entire dog-human relationship. This wasn't simply a trained association, the way a dog learns that a particular sound means dinner is coming. This was a real biological chemical bond, remarkably similar to family attachment. And that's where things start to get genuinely fascinating. Because oxytocin doesn't just create a pleasant feeling in the moment, a temporary rush of warmth during a cuddle on the couch. It actively reinforces memory formation. Research on bonding hormones across multiple species has shown that oxytocin helps the brain flag certain experiences as significant, as worth preserving long term, essentially stamping them with a kind of biological importance. So every single time a dog spent time with someone it trusted, whether it was a quiet evening on the floor or an excited greeting at the door, its brain was chemically reinforcing that memory. Over and over, year after year, quietly building something durable. Which means the dog wasn't only remembering a smell or a face or a voice, it was remembering an emotion, permanently stamped into its brain by the same chemical process that helps a mother instantly recognize her own child's cry in a room full of strangers. But scientists still had one major problem to solve. Emotional bonding could explain why a dog reacts strongly to a beloved person in the moment. It still didn't fully explain how that specific memory managed to survive years of total separation with zero daily reinforcement and still come back online instantly, fully intact. The answer, unexpectedly, came from working dogs. Military and service dog handlers had noticed a strange pattern for decades, something anecdotal that never quite made it into mainstream science. Dogs separated from a specific handler for years, sometimes due to deployment, sometimes retirement, sometimes reassignment, would still recognize that exact person on reunion, often before the person had even spoken a word, before they'd even fully entered the room. In 2019, researchers studying canine cognition at Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary, widely regarded as one of the world's leading centers for dog cognition research, uncovered something that helped explain this pattern scientifically. Dogs, they found, form what researchers call episodic-like memory. This isn't identical to human episodic memory. Dogs likely don't consciously replay a scene from the past the way we might replay a memory of a specific birthday or vacation. But dogs do encode specific past experiences, tied directly to particular people, specific places, and specific outcomes, and they can retrieve those encoded experiences long after the original event happened. In practice, this means a dog isn't simply storing a general rule like, "this human is safe." It's storing something far more specific and far more personal. This exact human gave me safety, comfort, and connection repeatedly over an extended period of time. And because that particular memory is continuously reinforced by oxytocin every time it's formed or revisited, it doesn't fade the way a neutral, emotionally unimportant memory would. This is the twist that even researchers didn't fully expect going in. For years, the working assumption in animal cognition research was fairly simple. Smaller brain, simpler memory system. Simpler memory system, shorter retention. It seemed like straightforward, common sense logic. Animals with less complex brains, the thinking went, simply couldn't hold on to long-term memories the way humans do. But the research told a very different story, at least for emotionally significant bonds. Dogs don't actually need constant reinforcement to keep an important memory alive. That's because the memory itself isn't stored primarily as information, the way a fact or a date might be. It's stored as emotion. And emotional memories, backed by both oxytocin and reward circuitry working together, turn out to be some of the most durable memories found anywhere in the animal kingdom, humans very much included. Think about why human memory tends to fade so quickly for most of our day-to-day experience. It's because the vast majority of what we experience is emotionally neutral. Facts, dates, faces we saw once at a conference and never again. None of it gets tagged as urgently important, so none of it sticks particularly well. But think about the specific person you loved most as a small child, a grandparent maybe, or an early caregiver. You can probably still remember small, oddly specific details about them decades later, the sound of their laugh, a particular expression, without ever having written a single word of it down. Dogs run almost entirely on that second, far more durable kind of memory. Nearly everything meaningful in a dog's life is emotional in nature. So while their memory for neutral facts and routine details is genuinely limited, their memory for the specific people they've formed deep bonds with turns out to be remarkably resilient, arguably more resilient than our own equivalent memories in many cases. And that's precisely why a dog can go completely silent, unresponsive, seemingly checked out, withdrawn, uninterested in the world for months or even years, and then, in a single instant, respond to one particular scent, one particular voice, one specific person walking through a doorway as if absolutely no time had passed at all. So why exactly do dogs never truly forget the people they loved? Because for a dog, remembering was never a mental file that gets opened on command, flipped through like a photo album. It's a full biological state, built simultaneously from scent recognition, reward anticipation firing in the caudate nucleus, and oxytocin-reinforced emotional memory, all working together. And critically, every single one of those systems locks in around a specific individual person, not a category of people in general, not humans as a broad group. One particular human, encoded specifically. Once that bond has been chemically encoded this deeply, it simply doesn't require daily maintenance in order to survive. It can sit there quietly, dormant if it absolutely has to, for months, for years, even for most of a dog's life, waiting patiently until the right trigger arrives. A scent carried on the wind, a familiar voice from another room, a specific shape appearing in a doorway. And in that instant, the entire bond comes rushing back online, instantly and completely. It isn't magic, however tempting that word might feel in the moment. It's one of the most efficient, elegant memory systems ever produced by evolution, built entirely around the single thing that mattered most for a wolf slowly transforming into a human companion across thousands of years, never, under any circumstances, losing track of exactly who keeps you safe. Which raises another question, one scientists are only just beginning to seriously explore. If dogs are capable of holding emotional memories this precisely, this durably, does that also mean they're capable of carrying something like grief in a form we don't yet fully understand? A growing number of researchers now believe the answer might be yes. That's a story for another day. If you enjoy exploring the biggest questions about history, science, and the natural world around us, subscribe to Nexorium for more documentaries every week.